Okay, now this is our first little bit of oh yay grammar. If you're geeky like me, you like grammar. I mean, you know, grammar to me is like a puzzle. It's not everybody's thing. It's like those people who like Sudoku. I hate that. Yeah, I hate that. I love cryptic crosswords. I love cryptic crosswords, the crazy, you know, where you play with language. Love that. The number one. But then I see people on the plane, you know, doing their Sudoku. Sudoku, how do you pronounce it?
Sudoku.
Sudoku. It's a Japanese word, right?
That's
what
I've been calling it.
Yeah, because there's a way Japanese is really regular with its pronunciation, but I just don't remember the rules, so whatever. Anyway, okay, the next step of this analysis, again, like so far really, you can see how this doesn't take you that long. It's going through sentence types, and sentence types are, well, here they are: fragments, simple, compound, complex, compound, complex. And the way most of these little charts are set up are kind of from the easiest to the more difficult, or from immature to more mature, arguably. So this is really simple. All you're doing is counting the number of fragments, simple, compound. You're just counting how many. And then here, write down an example of that type of sentence in the text. So if we go through, the easiest way to do this is you've numbered all the sentences now. Let's just go back and look at the first sentence and make a decision about what kind of sentence is it. Tomorrow, Highlanders will play the Lions. What kind of sentence?
Simple.
Simple. So again, really high tech. I just put an S beside the one. Okay, really high tech. The next one. I want Otago to beat the Lions as they are my fave team, and I feel upset with the team as they took Ben Blair off when he is the best player.
Compound.
I hear a nominee for compound. I hear compound complex. Compound complex. This is as complicated a sentence structure as you can make. So you can call it a CC. Because there are subordinate clauses as well as she's linked together two big sentences with and. Okay? Sentence number 3. Anton Oliver is off too as he hurted his back. What type of sentence?
Simple.
I hear a nomination for simple. Complex. Because of the as. If you take the as out, look what you've got. Two sentences. Anton Oliver is off too. He hurted his back. Okay, as, all right.
Complex.
Yeah, because there's a subordinate conjunction. Because as he hurted his back can't stand on its own, right? So it is a shame.
Simple.
Simple. Number 5. I know the Lions will win as they have Johnny Wilkinson on the field, and he is really a good kicker, and Otago needs Ben Blair on the field as he is the best kicker in the world.
Complex, compound.
Same thing again. She's got a structure there for that one. Nick Evans is good as well, but not as good as Blair.
Complex.
I hear complex and compound. What do you think? What do you think? I hear complex and compound. How many votes for either one? Be brave. Complex. Why do you think complex?
Because the two parts can't stand
how does it, mm-hmm,
I think the but makes but not as good as Blair, makes it a subordinate clause.
okay. Cecile, what's your argument?
But is a coordination, and it just, they took off the EA in is that is supposed. So that should be, if the sentence would be full, that would be Nick Evans is good as well, but is not good as Blair.
Mm-hmm.
And so those are two coordination,
Yeah,
with
it's,
a coordination in
yeah.
between.
it's a coordinating conjunction. It's like,
So it's a
yeah.
implied promise.
he went to school, but she stayed home. Okay? It's, he went to school, she stayed, it's the and the but and the or are the three coordinating conjunctions. And, but, or.
There was another one.
Yeah, there's another one. If you look in your Gallaudet Writer's Handbook, the list will be there. The most common one, of course, is and.
So what is this one?
Compound. I think the score will be hard, but I know the lines will get the first try. Mhm. And 8. Because Otaga is weaker without Anton Oliver or Ben Blair, and the Lines is stronger with Johnny Wilkison. What do you think? Mm-hmm. Kendra?
It's kind of incomplete
Mm-hmm.
because when you start a sentence with because Otago is weaker without Anton Oliver, this happens. That there should be something else at the end of it, which makes me think it's part of the last sentence.
Yeah, it's a tricky one because it's kind of almost reads like a fragment because it starts with the because Otaga is weaker without Anton Oliver or Ben Blair, and the Lions is stronger with Johnny Wilkinson. So if we built it into the one before and call it as one sentence, then it comes out as compound complex.
But
Mm-hmm.
the two clauses here that we have, they are linked by and
Mhm.
and is a coordination.
Mm-hmm. But he also has the because in there,
But
right?
because doesn't link the two
Yeah,
clauses. Because would link with the clause that is before.
yeah.
So those two are linked with the coordination, so they would be
Coordinating, yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you think? What side should we come down on? Justin, what are you thinking?
I would say it's compound complex.
Would you like to stick it all together, make it compound complex? Is
Because
that?
otherwise, like, yeah, it's just,
Is the
Mhm.
Isn't the because there because they'll get the first try? Like that's why they'll get the first try?
Mhm.
So that's the explanation of that.
Um,
Like I know the Lions will get the first try because
because
Otago
Otaga
is
is
weaker
weaker without
without
Anton Oliver or Ben Blair, and the Lions is strong. Yeah, I mean, if you take out the period, it kind of makes it
a little,
make sense.
yeah.
So maybe we should revise our version of number of sentences to 7.
And that would make the MOU 19.
Yeah. That works.
And then
Okay.
it's still compound complex.
Yes. Again, like what you're getting for this, it's when we're working in a group and you're working in pairs, you can kind of hash out. The end of the day, one decision one way or another on a grammar point isn't going to make or break the bank here. What you're getting is a flavor of what she's got. So if you go through now and count, how many fragments does she have? 0. How many simple sentences? 2. How many compound? 1. How many complex?
Oh, sorry, I jumped ahead.
Complex, 1. And compound complex? So what does that tell you? Not bad. Because you don't see, like, and what that makes sense with is, of course you're going to get a longer MLU when you have compound complex sentences. It's impossible to have a long MLU if you only have simple sentences, or it's pretty difficult. Okay? And so that's a good thing to see. So for her, she already has that sentence structure in place. Yay! But what you're going to see with a lot of kids, my bet will be, many of you are going to do an analysis where you're going to see simple sentences, 9, compound 1, 0, 0. For complex and compound complex, that would not surprise me at all. So then you start thinking about what's a teaching goal. Write a compound sentence using and. Write a compound sentence using but. Okay, if they're doing compound sentences, write a complex sentence using because. That's the easiest one. You know, write a compound sentence using, okay? Do you see how IEP goals should come from this? It's a hierarchy. You're not, and this is where the assessment comes in, because normally you would think a student in 7th or 8th grade would be working at compound complex sentences. But if your student is only writing simple sentences, you can't leap over compound and complex because they're easier. See how it's very, very mathematical that way? And then you have a goal to shoot for. Okay? With her, she's already doing pretty well with her sentence types. The one comment I would make is, for her, she already does compound complex sentences really well. But don't they all kind of look alike? She's got one way to do it, and it works for her, and she's using that one. So she's relying on that one. So one of the comments when I read it over at one point was, she uses compound complex structures, but she relies on one form, as. So one of the things you could be working on with her is teaching her another structure. So what's another structure you could give her for the kinds of things she's trying to say?
Things like consequently, as, because, for, to use those things instead.
Well, think about her sentence structure where she's saying, let's pick one. She says, where is this one? I want Otago to beat the Lions as they are my fave team and I feel upset with the team. Well, I was thinking about constructions like things like if, then. So if the team had these players, then. Although Anton Oliver is, so it doesn't matter which one you pick. Like English has an infinite number of things you can teach. But what I mean about an IEP goal is she's doing one. My goal for this term would be to give her 1 or 2 more strategies for how she can present a complex sentence. Because one of the things that's making her writing look immature is she does what you commented a couple other kids do, is repeats what she knows rather than branching out. Okay? So, but still, pretty good news to see that kind of complexity. Sentence functions is way easier. Declarative are statements. Interrogatives are what? Questions. Imperatives are commands. And exclamatories are like, yay. As one of my kids used to call them, yippee sentences. So, because this is an exposition, well, you tell me what you see. You can pretty much just know by having read it. It's all declarative sentences, which, given that it's an expository text, it's kind of fine. Like, it makes sense. Most expositions are statements. Although you could play around and say a little bit something like, you might be able to use a question to open as an opening sentence. You might wonder why, or you could, opening up a question. Will the Lions beat Otago on, is that a big deal kind of goal? Not so much. These other sentence types matter more when you're doing narratives and dialogue. Okay? So This one's not so important for this kind of text. You did a version of this already, looking at vocabulary in your expressive language sample. This is exactly the same thing. Looking at what verbs she's using, adjectives, adverbs, and then I put unusual words or phrases. This is a way to give credit for, wow, good for you to use that cool word, that's neat. Then any misused vocabulary, and then comments. So we don't care here about whether the verb is correct or incorrect around tense. It's just what verb. So it's just vocabulary at this stage. So if we go through this and look at verbs, what kind of verbs do you see? We won't maybe do all of this because you get it. I mean, you've done this already. What verbs do you see? The first sentence? Play. Next sentence. I see play. What's the next verb that comes? Want. Next verb? Beat. Are. Feel. Took. Okay. See how you just go along verb, verb, verb? And when you count, she uses, as near as I could figure to my count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. About 14 different verbs. And if you actually write them down, what I got was play, beat, took, want, are, feel, is, hurt, know, win, have, needs, think, get. What strikes you? Justin?
Oh,
Oh, no, go ahead. No, go ahead, sorry.
What if it's like a conjugation of a verb? For example, is and are.
It doesn't matter.
So you still list it as a different verb, or you use it the same one?
Well, if is and are on their own as copula verbs, then you put them down. If it's is going, you can put down is going or just going or go, because what we're looking at is the actual vocabulary. We'll worry about the tenses later.
So, I mean, am I saying, so like if you have is and are, you don't count those as one word together since it's the same word just conjugated
No.
to be, so you count that as two different verbs?
Yeah.
Okay.
And again, none of this is so precise. You can see where it's going is to drive IEP goals. You're not getting a number from this that matters all that much. But what should ring out at you, when I said that list of verbs, what impression do you get from that list?
Immature.
Simple, immature. They're high frequency, simple vocabulary. She doesn't use injured, she uses hurted. She doesn't use grabbed, took. The vocabulary is simple, low frequency. Okay? So even though, interestingly, her sentence structure, compound complex, her sentence structure is pretty intricate. Her vocabulary is really not age appropriate, particularly for written language. It's not as good as it could be. And if you go through the adjectives, just to save us the time, go through what the adjectives are. Well, what's the first adjective you see?
Favorite.
Yeah, fave. She uses fave. What's the next adjective? Best. Next. There's not that many adjectives, interestingly. Good. See, there's not a lot. The whole list of adjectives I got from this text was fave, good, first, weaker, stronger, upset, best. I think team maybe works as an adjective here. Anyway, when you say them, how do they sound as a list? Basic, simple. Yeah, not brilliant in terms of complexity. Are there any adverbs? There's just one, and it's one you might not recognize. The word really here is an adverb modifying an adjective. It doesn't matter so much. That's the only adverb, really. And is there any word that struck you as kind of unusual, or a phrase that you thought was kind of interesting? That you were surprised to see a deaf kid say? One of those, pretty cool kind of moments. Mm-hmm.
So it is a shame?
Yeah, I thought that was cool too. So it is a shame. That's not, yeah, that,
At 15 years old?
pardon me?
At 15 years old?
Yeah. My reaction too was, yeah, you wouldn't think it shouldn't be, but at this, yeah, for me it was.
8 years old, yeah, but
For 15, no, exactly. She should know it.
Well, I'm thinking the opposite, like it's an older
An older,
phrase.
oh,
to
an
say.
older, it's a shame, yeah. Anyway, whatever it was, it kind of jumped out at us. Was there any place in vocabulary where you thought it was kind of misused? Mm-hmm. Like something where you just went, that's odd.
where she said, I think the score will be hard.
Yeah, exactly. You're kind of unclear what she means. What did you think she meant when she said, I think the score will be hard? Yeah, close. Yeah. So she's using a word inappropriately. Like she knows what she means and she doesn't have the vocabulary for it. So that'd be one of those times where I'd be sitting with her and saying, can you tell me what you mean? Okay, I throw the cameras on. I'll tell you later. An example of a kid, I don't want it captured. Sorry, part-time people. Actually, I should just tell it because it is a true story, but then I'll change the names to protect the innocent. This kid, we were doing writing, and of course not having the words to say what you mean. And we'd gone on a school trip, and we'd done these trips every year in the school bus, and we'd go for a week. It was a big deal with the kids. It was lots of fun. And long week, but fun. And it was kind of an annual event we did at the School for the Deaf. And in June, the kids are now writing their memories of the trip and your favorite thing and your favorite memory, your best memory of our trip. And one of the kids, my team teaching partner and I are, going up and down as the kids are writing. And these are all kids who are 12, 13, 14, going up and down the rows, looking to see what they're doing. And she had written, okay, I've changed the names. She said, oh, my favorite memory of the trip is sex on the bus with, what? And we're like, what? And I said to my teaching partner, we're both on the bus. When was that happening that we didn't notice? So called her into the hall and said, so that means what? So she explains, and she explains what she meant was she was sitting in her seat, saw the boy, and was like, oh. But like nothing really happened. She was lusting in her heart, but not in the real world. So we said to her, you know what you wrote, what that means, and she was shocked, as one of the other kids would say. You really don't want to write it that way. So the way that she captured it in print was not exactly what she intended to say. So that's sometimes what happens when the kids are struggling to find the language to say what they mean. We were pretty sure that wasn't going on the bus with us, not noticing. We weren't sleeping that much at the time. Anyway, yeah. So sometimes you get phrases like that, and unless you ask the kids, you won't know exactly what they meant, because they almost always know. They just haven't been able to grab the right words. So I think we've already alluded to the fact of overall comments for her vocabulary. Like, it's okay, but again, what's the word? Immature. It's not where it needs to be. So you could be thinking about vocabulary expansion. And also one of the phrases that I would be teaching her, because what kind of a piece is this? An expository, what type of an expository text? An opinion piece. We could be teaching her phrases like, in my opinion, from my perspective, I believe, rather than always I think, I believe. So you could already start to maybe think about, rather than just say expand her vocabulary, pinpoint specific words that you might be working on with her, because this might be an area that you're going to work on for the next term. Opinion pieces.
I'm filling this out if we are repeating the fact that it's
Mhm.
immature, like that's something.
That's
that's
okay,
fine.
because what you're finding then is, ooh, there's the thread. What's her overall goal then? For some kids, it's to write some English. Well, she's got that, and you can kind of understand it. But the issue is her writing is immature. So the overall goal for her is to make her writing more age appropriate, less immature. Well, then that's fine. That's a giant goal. What you've got now are all the little puzzle pieces that you're going to address that are going to make it less, are going to make it more mature. So paragraphing, adding a title, better vocabulary, different structures for a you can already list the things that you're going to do with her that are really on target. That if she could acquire those or be taught those in a term, her writing will be less mature, and then you address the big goal. So the fact that it's all weaving together, it should, right? Because you should start to see, that's Halliday's whole argument, form and meaning are wrapped up together. So her meaning isn't as rich as it could be because she's got lacking in form and lacking in words. And so, yeah, okay? And all this does is kind of highlight it. And actually, you can see how fast this goes. We're marching through it kind of slowly to do it once. Once you've done this once, this doesn't take that long to do. Okay? Spelling, not a big issue for her. And we've talked a little bit about spelling. Typically, deaf and hard of hearing kids, spelling is not a huge issue for them. They spell fairly well the words they know. The trouble is they don't know a lot of words. So it's usually more about vocabulary than it is spelling. But we're not going to spend, you can figure this out yourself. Just note any misspelled words. Does she have any? Heard it isn't really, it's more a grammar error. Mm-hmm.
What about fave and first when she does like the number and ST?
ST.
Like where does that go?
Yeah, probably the first I wouldn't probably worry about it. I think fave is just, if you're in music, they say fave all the time.
I know, but
Yeah.
as writing, as a formal writing,
Yeah.
where would that go anywhere? Or no?
I probably wouldn't, I'd probably just not even worry about it. And the only big spelling mistake she really makes is the team player, like Wilkinson for, and that's the proper name. So her spelling is an issue? Not really. And the thing about, I don't know if I've said this to you before, but some people will sometimes ask, well, why do the kids spell pretty well and have so much trouble with the syntax? And one of the ways I think about it, if you think about how you monitor spelling, like when you're writing, and you're writing along, and you write a word like there, T-H-E-R-E, and you write it and you look at it, and you've written it 1,000 times, and you look at it and go, it doesn't look right. Something looks wrong. Like you're looking at the word, and for some reason or other, it looks wrong. And you say to yourself, it doesn't look right. Because you monitor spelling visually. So our kids are pretty good at monitoring spelling because there's a big visual component. Even though you talk your way into text, ultimately, there's a it doesn't look right piece. But if you're reading over a piece that you've written, and you're trying to fix it to see if it makes sense, you read it over to see if it sounds right. And you say it in your head and you go, oh, that doesn't make sense. And you read it out loud to yourself and listen to what you say to monitor the syntax. So I think maybe that, because spelling is more visual, our kids are better at, have less trouble with spelling. The trouble is they don't use a wide range of words. So they're really good at spelling the words that they know how to spell, or that they know. Although you get the one mistake they'll make the most often is the grill and the bran and the fram. The girl and the barn and the farm. They flip the letters around. You can see that a lot. Again, this pretty straightforward. Still?
I don't see anywhere capitals.
Oh, it's its own section down at the bottom. No worries.
Sorry.
Okay, if you go through this, you'll find what's the only form of punctuation she uses? Periods. And she uses them at the end of sentences, okay, where they belong more or less. What piece of punctuation should she be using, given that she writes lots of complex and compound complex sentences? Commas. So there's a nice little happy teaching goal, because it's nice and measurable, you can teach it to her, and it would make her sentences easier to read if she put some commas in. Okay? Capitalization. Take a look at that. What do you see?
Proper names aren't
Pardon me?
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Proper names aren't capitalized.
Yeah, she doesn't capitalize proper names, which is kind of funny. Okay? And again, that's not like a huge goal. That's like, I think you could just tell her.
So for these boxes, are you writing how many are used correctly, or are you writing the examples?
What I would be putting here is, I put the number beginning of sentences. I just count. So there's 8 sentences. Does she have 8 used correctly? Yes. Used incorrectly? Not used. And here is where I'd put examples. If there's a misuse, like in the middle of a sentence where you don't need one at all, like on a verb or something.
That kicker.
Yeah. Pardon me? Does she have one?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
kicker
it's-
with a big,
Yeah, it's, and sometimes it's hard to tell with the way that they print. Could be. Again, then you have to stand back from the whole thing and look, do you think this is a big issue for her? In terms of the grander scheme of what she needs, probably not. So, and that's one thing that sometimes every year we have that conversation with your group to sort of say, then sort of step back from the whole thing and say, okay, what matters the most? So, for example, the Fly Me Eagle kid that you saw, the last thing I'm worried about with him is whether he capitalizes. His sentences are sideways. So, like, what's the biggest deal for this kid? I mean, what's the most important that's going to make the biggest difference? Capitals are probably far down the list.
Couldn't you make one of the IEP goals self-correcting? So at the end of it, having her review her own work and then making her own
Yeah,
adjustments?
and the only, see, the thing about self-correcting, the challenge with self-correcting and revising is they have to know how to do it in the first place. So if an IEP goal is reread your work and revise 4, they'll go, okay, and then they reread it and they have no idea what to do.
But then that would tie in with more so the concepts of prints.
I would almost see rereading as the teaching strategy, not as the IEP goal. You see what I mean? Like teaching a kid to reread is a strategy versus what it is you want them to get out of the strategy. Am I making sense? It's like the other one that we get when you start, I'm a little bit ahead of myself, but the same, we've learned, because the same things come up every year, and we all do this, we all struggle with this, because it's the hardest thing is writing the goals. It really and truly is. People will say, when we ask you then, what's the assessment tool? And people will say the writing sample. This isn't an assessment tool, this is data. What's the assessment tool? It's this thing. So the exemplars, the analysis of written text, the test of written language, those are the assessment tools. The writing sample is just the data. That's not an assessment tool, that's just the stuff. Okay? So you'll see when you start doing your IEPs how you have to think about, that's a really good idea. Should it go in this column or that column? Because we're not used to thinking that way necessarily. And every time somebody asks me one of those, I think about that. Like writer's workshop. Well, the goal isn't to do writer's workshop. The goal is you engage in writer's workshop to address some of the issues that the student has.
Well, say for example, if we had a younger sample, and a lot of the issues were the spelling, even though it's prominent throughout the piece and it might seem like a big goal, would that not be something that we would worry about unless it was something?
That's a good question. Does it mean I would ignore all those notes? It's nice to have one kind of easier goal or a balance of goals, but I'm just saying you want to step away from it and make sure that you're not missing the forest for the trees. Like if the thing is completely unintelligible, the first thing to worry about is not punctuation and spelling, just because it's easy. So every time I see an IEP, I see somebody say, we'll put periods at the end of sentences. Okay, there are no sentences. This thing is gobbledygook. They're putting periods at the end of messes of words. So really, that's not going to help this kid get anywhere. So it's kind of that, if you know what I mean. So it's not that there's ever a goal that's a wrong goal. It's the wrong goal for that kid based on the assessment. You know what I mean? It's matching up, connecting the dots is what it's like. So it's a little puzzle. And then what's going to get you the most payoff for that kid? Because you've got a limited amount of time with them. If you're an itinerant teacher, you see them 2-3 times a week, what are you going to get the most payback for? And what's going to advance the child's English and writing the most or reading the most? And what is spell check going to take care of to some extent? Okay? Mm-hmm.
I just have a quick question. She
Sure.
starts a lot of her sentences with proper names. If
Yeah.
she capitalizes it, where do we put that as a proper name or a sentence starter?
Oh, well, if it's the beginning of a sentence, it would be the beginning of the sentence. I'd say starting the sentence with a capital. Okay? So again, these are nice to know. The reason that I put them in, especially the spelling, if you see a deaf student that has really tons and tons and tons of spelling mistakes, then you start to go, are you a little buddy with some other things going on? Like a hearing kid who has tons and tons of spelling errors well into 4th and 5th grade. So it might be, and I'm not saying you're going to be diagnosing a learning disability, because on this form you get lots of spelling mistakes. But what I'm saying is like, that's when a little flag goes up and says, most of the deaf kids don't have that much trouble spelling the high frequency words. Funny that you do, And also, if a kid doesn't have a lot of trouble spelling the high frequency words, why are you spending time teaching spelling? When really maybe what you should be teaching is vocabulary. Because I'll go into a class and they're all doing these stupid spelling lists. They can already spell all those words. They can't use them in a sentence and they don't know what they mean, but they can spell a whole bunch of stuff. So it's again focusing on what the kid really needs rather than what you want to teach. Okay, here's one that I put it here, and good luck teaching it, because I don't think you can, actually. The articles, and the. There's only the 3. And if you've read anything in the little Gallaudet Writer's Handbook, and an are the indefinite, and the is the definite. And does she use them correctly? You go through and look where she uses and an and the. She makes one article error, just one. In the very first sentence, what's missing? The Highlanders. She makes only one mistake with articles. I have to tell you, it's one of those things I don't know that you can teach it. Like, you just have to learn it. You acquire it by using the language, honestly. Like, if you try and explain, like, you can open up your Gallaudet Writer's Handbook and read the rules for articles. Good luck explaining them to anybody. Because all you have to do is just start saying a sentence. And I think I talked about this before. If you say something like, a boy was walking down the street. The boy met a man, who was coming the other way. Really? Okay, if you left all those out and said to a kid, put in the as and the thus, it's just, you just know they're there because you know they're there because you have the language. It's like if you look at a language that has articles that are masculine, feminine, and neuter, like German or French with masculine. You just know it or you don't know it. Like, why is a pen feminine or masculine? I don't know.
The pretty one are feminine.
Yes.
This is what we say.
See?
The pretty one are feminine.
The pretty ones are feminine, the unpretty ones.
Is
Yeah, see, there you go. But this is the problem, right? Unless it's something obvious like a man or a woman in French, it's like you just have to know. And you acquire that through acquiring the language. And the articles are kind of like that, and I wish I could tell you I had a way to teach them. I don't. So when you see that Caitlin just has them, you just do the little yippee happy dance and say, yay, I don't have to worry because she already has them. And if you don't, you just kind of think, okay, the best I can do, the only thing I can give you for that is you can try doing close activities, and you can try, if you're signing with the kid, even an oral kid where you just start marking the and the and you highlight it. It's really tough because it's very hard to get it, but you can, there's no rule. I mean, there is and there isn't. So it's just one of those ones that I think is impossible to teach through, you just have to, you learn. And if you just know it, I know them in German and I can't tell you how I know. I just know that a book is that and a house is something else. That, that one is neuter, one is feminine, and one is masculine. And, 4-year-old kids know because they just know. So I'm not going to be much help to you there, but it's helpful to know whether a child has. Well, most of the deaf kids don't use articles, or they just put them in wherever. The kids, I'm talking here about the signing kids who really struggle. So what I found they used to do, I used to call it the salt shaker approach. They would put all the words down, like the Eagle Boy, all the key words, eagle, fly, barn, hit. Okay, they'd have them all, and he knew what the story was. He'd go, all right, I've got my main words. Now here's my English salt shaker, in which I have of, the, and, for, to, all the little prepositions and articles. And I just put in as many as I think I need for English. My work is done. And they mostly didn't go where they needed to be because they knew there needed to be some there, and they just put them in. Because they didn't have that intuitive sense of where they would go, because you don't learn them that way. You acquire them in use, and it's really hard to teach kids how to use those. You can teach them some vocabulary. You can even help them with some sentence structure. The little small function words are really hard to teach, really tough to teach.
Sorry. So do you think also has to do maybe with the fact that for some ASL users, they don't have the or unless it's signed English. ASL there's no the or and, right? It's I think I told you a story already. It's where I was talking about how in Cantonese, for example, they don't use he or she. So my mom, whenever she constantly calls me a she, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think maybe you think that also could be part of the problem.
Absolutely.
Too.
When you're translating from ASL to English, for sure, because ASL does it differently. Prepositions in ASL aren't when you do stand up in ASL. The stand and the up are all incorporated. Remember that we talked about that incorporation. You don't. Okay, that's kind of so you can stand up. You can do that. But a kid who's using spoken English just says stand up. They know the up is there, and you sit down. And those are easier ones, actually. What's much harder is stuff like I went up the street versus down the street. Is there really up a street? Because streets are this way. So what's up the street versus down the street? Stairs are more easy. Okay, but you see what I mean about it's just the vagaries of language. And articles are difficult. Japanese students tell me that they have huge problem with articles because they don't have articles in Japanese. And my flatmate in my office mate, when I was doing my PhD was Japanese. We're still good friends. She teaches in Tokyo now. And she used to have me read her essays. And this is at the PhD level because she still had trouble with articles. Because they don't have them in Japanese. And so it was always difficult for her. And she was a pretty good English speaker at this point. And still when she was writing, that was hard. So it's not surprising that our deaf and hard of hearing students who don't hear them have a lot of trouble with them. It's really tough. So those little function words are tough. So the articles are hard. The conjunctions, there's two main kinds. And the first one is easy, or easier. Remember we talked about this already, the coordinating ones? And, or, and but, the three main ones. If you can teach those three, that's excellent. And here, see, this is where the little grammar pieces go into the form piece. Okay, let's say my goal is the student only uses simple sentences. Okay? I want her to use compound sentences. What does she need to have?
Coordinating conjunction.
She needs one of these. So then I add that. That's got to be part of the package. So if one of the goals is to write compound sentences using a coordinating conjunction and. Now, that's not going to be a goal for Caitlin. She already uses and but. She's pretty good already. But we did say, though, a goal for her subordinating conjunctions. What kind of sentences do we use subordinating conjunctions in? What sentence types? Complex and compound complex by definition. She uses as all the time, and she doesn't use different ones. So this is where we could have a goal for her to expand her subordinating conjunctions, because she uses the same ones over and over. See, and actually those are more teachable. Pardon me. Like, I think these are kind of, you can teach those to a certain extent. It's all easier if you acquire it from your language, but those are, I think, more teachable. You can show kids how to do that. Much easier than articles. Prepositions. The four main types: prepositions of time, place, travel, manner. Our kids tend to have trouble with those because, again, you get them because you hear, okay? And you just know because that's what sounds right. So the kids will write things like, or used to, when I was teaching them, write things like at Sunday. And you'll see that all the time. Like, they'll use a preposition, but the wrong one. So, again, if you look at hers, does she, I mean, you've read it several times now, does she have an issue with prepositions? Not really. Her prepositions, if you went through, they're all correct. I don't believe she has a preposition error. Okay, so she's pretty good with prepositions. But you're going to have kids who aren't, who are going to make mistakes with prepositions. And how we all, yeah, Cecile?
Can we still look at the variety of them and just say maybe we need to actually build up on more diversifying them?
Yeah, if you can find places, yeah, absolutely. You can always be looking at the level of sophistication and maturity, because that seems to be obviously the underlying thread with her. And and that might be the case with a few of the kids that you have. Now, there are some of them, I know you've shown me the samples of kids that haven't written much. Theirs are going to be more expanding to something that looks a little bit more than a simple sentence. But then some of them were like, I know Cecile's sample, few of you had like kids writing whole pages. So look at the range we had. Like I saw a couple samples that were like 2 lines or 3 lines, and some that you had, what, 3-4 pages?
No, 1.5.
What, but like look at how small the print, and look how it's written. And if you hold yours up, they're just a range in this group of kids. Like, look at the difference. So you can imagine the goals for these kids should be really different. And that's back to your point. Yet they both could be in writer's workshop. They both could be revising, but their goals are different. Okay? Pronouns are huge. If you go through Caitlin's, okay, the way this, let me just explain how this works, because these are easy. The prepositions are pretty straightforward. The easy way to do prepositions is to go through the text you've got and see prepositions of time, and a really simple way to do is just circle the ones that are used. Okay? And then are they used correctly? Sometimes, always. Same thing with place, travel, manner. Prepositions are straightforward. Pronouns, our kids have a lot of Kent can have a lot of trouble with pronouns, okay? And you can see why kids who sign have trouble with pronouns, because all the pronouns in ASL are points or flat hands, right? So figuring out, making that back into English is challenging. So personal pronouns, you have 3 cases. Subjective, to make it simple, I just listed them. I, you, we, he, she, it, they. Objective, me, you, him, her, them. Possessive, you got the idea, right? So, does she use personal pronouns? If you look at Caitlin's sample. Mm-hmm. Would you have any comment to make on her use of pronouns, her use of personal pronouns? Anybody?
Maybe if she turns around the sentences, she can actually use more pronoun and not so much I or. So
Yeah,
know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. There are places where she uses the proper nouns too often, and she could be using more objective case pronouns or reframing it a little bit to make more use of the personal pronouns, because she repeats the names an awful lot. The proper nouns come up over, and you see that a lot with some of the kids. They'll use the boy, the boy, the boy, the boy, the boy over and over and over again. The interesting thing, when we analyzed those 100 and some odd samples in New Zealand, here's what we saw almost none of. Any of these pronouns. Almost 0. Of the interrogative, the relative, the demonstrative pronouns. And Halliday would say that that rings out in terms of how it limits the level of complexity. So remember when I talked, not to get too linguistic here, but when you use a pronoun like that, for example, okay, what those pronouns let you do is talk about some big idea that came before in a story. So for example, if I said something like, all over North America, they have been cutting, all over North America, they have been cutting down trees on hillsides, okay? This issue, or that issue, see, it refers to the whole business before, that then lets you take that idea and put it aside alongside a new idea. This issue has caused great misery for, or something. I'm not making the best example, but these kinds of pronouns are the pronouns that let you put ideas alongside of one another, okay? And really make language complicated, and are huge when you talk about CALP. Remember, cognitive academic language proficiency? You'll see uses a lot of these kinds of pronouns, and our kids are not very good at using them. And if you look at Caitlin's sample, she only has 1, and it's understood. She doesn't actually use it. If you look at the sentence where she says, I know the Lions will win, really should be, I know that the Lions will win. Okay? It's just interesting to me that these are almost, and I'll be interested to see if your kids use any of these. Mm-hmm.
Usually that is not written quite often.
Yes.
Or said. So are you counting it as one, or are you just making a note?
I'm just kind of making a note, because I would pretty much say she doesn't use these, really. And I think, just think about it. Think about how you might, a way to sometimes think what you want the kid to do is how would you rewrite some of her sentences if you might use some of these pronouns. Okay? when you look at some of the places where it's fine, but it looks immature, maybe it's immature because she's not using any of these types of pronouns.
And have you had more success teaching these different the use of the different pronouns than you have, say, with the
Articles? Yeah, I think so. I did, because you know what? Even hearing kids, when it gets to that more complex use of some of that language, aren't as good at it. And you can teach, interestingly, more of that than you can teach prepositions and articles. And when you look at the Gallaudet Writer's Handbook, it will give you examples of how to use these. And you can show kids how to combine 2 or 3 ideas by using that word. I'm trying to think of an example off the top of my head, which is always hard to do when you're trying to think of one on the spot. For example, something like I saw a book in the store. Okay, I saw a book in the store. It's my favorite book. Okay, yeah, the book that I saw in the store is my favorite. Is the kind of language our kids don't use very often. Okay, and you can teach that. If you can teach combining sentences with compound ands and buts, you can teach kids to make their language more complex by using some of these pronouns. And like I said, we've done umpteen of these and almost never see any of our kids using these.
And one of the websites that you gave us with some exercise to do about complex compounds, there is a lot of exercise on how to build.
Yes.
I've used it a couple of years ago.
Yeah, it is a teachable piece. That's a good point, Peter. It's something that's much more teachable, interestingly, than articles are. If a kid has some basic English sentences, you can start teaching them how to combine them with these pronouns.
Also, if you teach them about asking questions, the interrogative pronouns will automatically come in. Right?
Absolutely. And the interesting thing, as the kids learn how to write them, they'll learn how to read them better, because sometimes what happens when they read them, they don't understand what's modifying what, because they read it all as simple sentences and they misunderstand. So, and really, once you're starting to get into this, you're getting into that more complex language, and that's where school lives, with that more complex English. It doesn't live in the land of simple sentences. It just doesn't. And you know what's fun to do? Well, fun if you're a grammar geek, but take a look at a little kid's storybook, just for fun. Like a storybook that you read aloud to a 2nd or 3rd grader, or even a 1st grader, and look to see how complex the language is already, and what they already understand when they hear it aloud. You just kind of go, wow. Okay, and let's just finish this up real quickly, because it's a long enough day. The last 2 bits, again, written down so that it's pretty straightforward. And what you can do again is just circle. Do they use the simple present, past, future? And they're right there, so you don't have to go back and look in your handbook. The perfect tense, the continuous tense, modals, subject, verb, agreement.
Would is a modal too, isn't it?
Would is a modal. These are some examples. There are more. Again, what this form by no means covers all there is in English. That'd be impossible. The idea with this form is to go at enough of the grammar and the syntax and the meaning and all of that so that you can develop an IEP. If you're getting really like the present progressive, you know, there's many more verb tenses. If you're at that level, that kid is writing well enough that you don't need to do this form, okay? This is meant to get at those kids who are struggling enough that you need to analyze their writing in detail to come up with an appropriate IEP. again, for Caitlin, if you scan her verbs, what you'll see is hers are pretty good. Not except, because of the nature of the text, she uses, it's all written in the simple past. If you go through it, it's pretty much, is there a will in there maybe?
Person.
Will be hard. Will win. So she's got some futures in there. But it's all fairly straightforward, and there's one verb error, one verb tense error you pointed out already.
Heard it?
Heard it. And that's just no ED, right? Like little kids do that, right? He herded me. And again, verb tenses, easier to teach than articles, but not a slam dunk either. I have to tell you. And that when you try, it's like, because that's why they've done all the things with the signing. Walked, or walk, or, various versions of past, or ing, or I would see the continuous, they'd go run. This was meant to be, the continuous present. I don't know. Will is easy because you can put it here. Another one of those things, verbs are easier if you acquire them rather than trying to teach them later. And the same is true for word order. Word order is really hard to teach. Once you're past SVO, like subject, verb, object, that one's, the kids don't really have trouble with that one because it's easy. But as soon as you start getting clauses and the placement of adjectives and all of that becomes really difficult. I mean, where do you put an adjective? Before and sometimes. It could be after, or it can be like.
How do you call the verbs that are actually the feeling verbs?
Oh, the copula?
Yeah.
Yeah, like the house is big, as opposed to the big house. So the adjectives aren't necessarily always before the verb, or before the noun, sorry. It's just, if there are three things that I think are really hard to teach with rules, articles, funnily enough, prepositions, and word order, and then following closely on the heels, verb tenses. Like, those ones are really hard to teach. You can put them out there and you can show kids, yeah, this is it, but then to apply the rule is really difficult.
If there are a number of errors of, say, singularization and pluralization, where would that fall under?
Oh, plural.
Like, if they kept saying mouses,
Yeah.
or if they were just having trouble, especially with irregular verb or irregular nouns, where would you stick that?
It's interesting that that's the one thing I didn't put on the list. You know why? Because it's the one thing that's so dead easy to teach. One cat, two cats, add S. And the irregular ones, the kids they pick up. I almost would include that under vocabulary. Maybe be worth putting in as a little extra bar. It's not one that's usually a huge problem, interestingly.
You had it on the other form.
Yeah, on the oral language. Think about that. Maybe it's worth adding. That's a really good point. But I have to tell you, it's teachable and not one that they ever have a whole lot of trouble with. And every time I go to a workshop on strategies in bilingual education that you can teach with translation, it's always the example they use. One cat, many cats. So cats, yeah, well, that's not the hard one. If you can crack the article or preposition one or verb one, then, that's the issue with translation. And that's the whole point, I guess, what I'm getting at, is it's the language that sits under this. So where the form starts to not get sticky, but you still have to identify if it's a problem, if verb tenses are a problem, you're going to have to teach it somehow, although it's going to be hard. And recognize, yeah, it sucks to have to teach verb tenses because it's hard. Simple past is pretty easy, but then, like verbs like, I would have known. I would have known you were coming if you would have told me. think about it. Just think about how much is complicated there, right? Oh, hard. So all this to say, when you go through the form, what should jump out at you is the pieces of grammar you need to worry about first, and look at the big picture. Okay, so if a kid has a whole lot of trouble with just word order, I'm not worrying about articles if it's not in English order. Okay? And if it's not in English order, I'm not going to worry about complex sentences. I'm going to do simple sentences first. So is it making some sense in kind of how it should all hang together, I hope? And then bring your stuff back next week. We can look at it again, help each other. It's not a test. It's meant to be a way to look at it and come up with goals for your student. And it's also not, if you get one thing in the wrong place again, it's no big deal. It really isn't. So you count as something a verb of a preposition of time and it's really place. Oh well, the world's not going to come to an end. What this should give you, once you look at 2 or 3 pieces of writing next year for a kid, you should begin to see where their big gaps are. And then what's the most important gap? There might be 15 of them, but what's the one that you should be paying attention to first? Okay? All right, let's leave that because everybody's done. It's been a long, busy day. Everything else is up here. The information for the close, compared to this, the close is simple. The instructions are here. The links work. Read these pages. It's like 2 or 3 pages. And I'm not sure I have the right pages from your course text for scoring the close, but if it's not, look in the index under close. It's 2 or 3 pages that tells you how to score a close. It's dead easy.
Sorry, back to my question like way earlier. Could you just address the quiz that we have for Wednesday and Thursday?
Oh, well, tomorrow's is in class, so you're just going to have it in class, and it's just on what we've done up to this point. So you really, don't stress about studying. If you've been to class every time, you will be fine.
Is it open book again?
What,
Not
this
this
one?
time?
Not this time, no. Yeah, the open book is pretty, Open book means you've been paying attention and you know where stuff is, and that's fine with me. The grammar quiz will be online. And it'll be open and you'll have X amount of time to finish it. Okay, so again, if looking at a book helps you, off you go. Okay? It's not about having anybody fail, it's really not.
All right, one more thing. For SLGS, the chart you want tomorrow, you want to hand it in or?
Bring a hard copy with you so we can look at them together, and then I'll figure that.
Is it okay
Maybe
to
just come
handwritten?
around and look at them.
They're handwritten?
Yeah, it's handwritten is fine.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's only just a page. It's not like.
Christopher wants for SLG.
For sign language.
So it's basically all the stuff we've been writing.
Yeah, it's what we've been doing
Okay.
since, channel, modality, ASL, sign English, stuff, all that stuff. Okay? And then just while you're packing up, you can look here. There's a couple things to read, and there's a little thing you can look at about running records. It's kind of interesting on the ministry website. You can have a wee look. Because part of what you're doing in the QRI is really a running record. But we'll worry about the QRI next week. Okay, thanks guys. I know it's a long, Tuesdays are a long day. But there's only one more. You can believe it? Well, and then our presentations when you get to talk to each other, so.